Nerdish Nerdy Nerd News.
Hi, and welcome to Nerdish Nerdy Nerd News. Come along and ride with us as we explore, discuss, and nerd-splain some of the most interesting topics of today.
Hey, I'm Ferg. I spent my youth playing sports, then I moved into IT, so I've been around nerds quite a bit. I hope to have some laughs and learn some things along the way.
Hey, I'm Tim. Hung around with nerds a lot growing up, hoping that it would rub off. I think it kind of did, because I'm kind of nerdish. And as always, my co-hosts.
Hey, thanks Tim. I'm Kristian. I've been playing and writing, creating games and Dungeons & Dragons since high school. My idea of a relaxing weekend is playing vids with my buds online. I also used to do complex math troubles with my dad for fun. I am very nerdy. And with us, to help us understand the world a little better...
Hi, I'm Jess. I've been programming and using computers since the early 80s. I'm a voracious reader, consistently going through about 500,000 or more words a month. I've got some biochemistry in my background, and I've been using technology for as long as I can remember. I am the nerd.
Well, we're recording. We're ready to go. Technically,
it was
that's
so funny when we did that, when we were doing that at the radio station for our intro, and they're like, okay, we're going to do a nerd laugh, and all of us are like, the engineer, the recording engineer's like, no guys, that's pedophile, not nerd. Oh, he was so funny.
He was. So, we've now had our warm-up meal. We've had some nice burgers and chilled out and just hung out for a bit. Yeah. Getting back in the swing of things.
We talked politics without getting into a fist fight.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
Yes. Yeah. So how's everyone been?
Pretty good. It was an hour since we were down here.
Yeah. Yeah, those burgers are good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're out. If you start to hear any of us snore, we've gone into a meat coma. So we're looking at... What are we looking at today, Jess?
Word and phrase origins. Etymology is, I think, yeah. Now, word origins can be... they're not... The stuff we have here may not be perfect. We're not etymologists. As opposed to entomologists or... So we may not be 100% correct. This is just what our research has found.
Yeah, but I mean, I had an English mother who was very studious on the words and how you pronounce them and like proper
enunciation and pronunciation.
Yep.
And grammar.
Get your point across correctly. And the one that always bothered her the most is how here in Saskatchewan, a lot of times I seen things. Or
it bugs me too.
Yeah.
And the fact that you two...
Can you borrow me $1?
Yeah.
I'll slap you.
Yeah. So yeah, like linguistics and language was a very large part of my growing up and doing it right. And entomology is like the history of where those words that we use every day is come from. Sorry, etymology.
Yeah, etymology.
Not entomology. Very different.
Entomology is bugs, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
One simple letter in the wrong place, and the entire meaning is changed.
Mm-hmm.
But like I say, we do kind of want to preface this. This might get a little raunchy as we get into some of the Old English and some of the etymology of words we use every day. But we are going to do this.
The following is intended only for mature audiences. Viewer discretion advised.
Which really should be at the front of every one of our podcasts, but...
We don't get into like real bad stuff, but there's some words here that are not appropriate for the younger age group.
But we'll start out with the etymology of the word etymology. So, I mean, etymology is the study and meaning of and history of words. Etymology actually across many, the French, Latin, Greek, it's been pretty much the same word throughout history. Etymologia in Latin and etymologia in Greek. the analysis of a word to find its true origin, the study of the true sense of a word. Like it's funny that the etymology of etymology is etymology.
Yeah.
Like there's very little, like you can't break the word down too much. Etymos is true or real. Ology is like any ology, study of something. So like geology, psychology is the study of the precursor part of that word. But yeah, that's etymology of etymology is basically etymology. If that explains it completely, you will start to get the gist of some of the words that we are going to dive into. Common words and phrases.
We're looking at words in the English language. Now, this will be North American and European English that we're looking at. So there are a lot of crossovers into other languages that might translate, but they won't be necessarily the same. So,
yeah. Can you think of any off the top of your head, Fergal, that like they translate from where you come from that don't translate into?
Oh, things that I would say from Ireland that wouldn't really mean the same here.
Mm-hmm.
Not off the top of my head, but there are for sure.
when you heard
urinal. There you go.
That's just a different pronunciation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my wife gets me to say it regularly because she likes how I say it. Urinal.
What about, I know there's one in particular that it's, I don't know if it's where it specifically comes from, but to take the piss.
Oh, yeah.
Like, do you say that to someone in North America and they're like, what are you talking about? That's actually disgusting.
Yeah. I don't need to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or another one when I used to smoke is a fag. I used to smoke fags.
Yeah.
And
that was just slang for a cigarette.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And an Irish one would be if you're having a good time or just hanging out or whatever, you'd be having the crack.
Yeah.
And saying that to somebody from North America and you get it completely, where's the crack?
Yeah. Like, what, you got a pipe for that? Do you smoke it? Yeah.
So yeah, there is a bit of that, all right.
Yeah, there's definitely regional differences. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, even the words hungover, like you're talking about going out drinking and taking a piss and all this. I mean, the word hungover used to be the cheapest place to sleep after a night out was a rope tied at about waist level.
Yeah, waist level.
Yeah. You would hang over the rope and sleep off a night's drinking.
It was, because hotel rooms or rooms for rent were actually quite expensive. And instead of paying pounds or I don't know what it would be, like quite a bit, you could go for some of the ones I saw were like for 2 pennies was literally you go and hang yourself over this rope and have a snooze until the morning.
Right. I hear Ryanair are going to bring it in for their cheap flights in Europe.
Business class. What's the other one? Peasant class and
hungover.
Yeah, the hungover section.
Well,
which would make sense because a lot of people who fly Ryanair are going to like Italy for a weekend to drink and party. So.
Yeah. I would have I guess a phrase for hungover. So in Ireland you'd say sick as a small hospital.
It's so visual.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and another one that has to do with sleeping is when you say sleep tight. And that has actual beds used to be made from a mattress that was, instead of a box spring, it was just ropes that were tied in a lattice. And so what would happen is, because hemp or whatever the ropes from, they're not made from nylon nowadays, like they were nowadays. At least I don't know if anyone sleeps on a bed made out of nylon ropes, but
to each their own.
Yeah. Depending on
if you do, message us.
Yeah, send us a picture. Not counting hammocks, by the way. The ropes would stretch, and the bed would get a bow in the middle. It would sag, and so it wouldn't be comfortable anymore. So what people would have to do is every so often they'd have to tighten the ropes, and that's what sleep tight meant. It would be like, make sure you tighten the ropes before you go to sleep.
Was that why my bed's got a big divot in the middle of it?
No, that's just because you don't move and you have a butt cracks that's like perfectly in the middle of your bed.
Well, don't
You're
make
supposed to turn the mattress.
don't
nowadays.
make me give you the short end of the stick.
Oh, there's another good one. So where did that come from?
Debtors and loaners would make notches in a stick, indicating how much was owed. The tick would be split lengthwise.
Stick.
Oh,
Someone
sorry.
made
The
a typo.
ticks. Sorry, the ticks would be split lengthwise, hopefully making 2 even pieces. Sometimes the stick wouldn't split evenly, and one would be shorter than the other. The person loaning the money would get the larger stick, enabling them to make more notches without the debtor being able to prove it wrong.
So yeah, think of it like a piece of kindling, right? Like a small piece of wood, and what they do is they'd use a file and they'd put notches down the length of the kindling. So let's say, Fergal, I owed you $20, so we'd put 20 notches, right? And then we'd take that stick and we'd split it, and hopefully we would each get half lengthwise of that stick. They would be equal lengths, right? But if we didn't, you, being the one that loaned me money, would get the piece that had more of it on there, and I might not have all the notches on my side. So the part that you had that I didn't, you could add notches to, and then I couldn't prove that I didn't owe you that because my stick only shows what part I have. So when you get the short end of the stick, that means you're kind of getting shafted. You're getting
really getting shafted.
You're not gonna, and that's where that saying comes from.
That is interesting. The roots of some of our languages is so ingrained in 500-year-old, and the way the sayings have changed. The word nice, actually, that's a funny one. So the word nice actually the original meaning of the word nice isn't what we think of it today. It used to actually be a negative connotation. Wow. So the word nice didn't always refer to something nice. In fact, it actually began as a negative term derived from the Latin necessius, meaning ignorant or unaware. And for almost a century, it was used to refer to a stupid or foolish person. Over time, though, nice shifted meanings and came to refer to something pleasant and agreeable. And a lot of it actually had to do with how people were dressed. So they'd say they were overdressed, and they would say, oh, look at that person, they're all niced up, or they're all nice, saying that they're too dressed for the occasion. But then as culture progressed to have that as a actual good thing, to be overdressed, the word was still used in the same way. It would be like, oh, look, so-and-so is dressed nice. Well,
and the
meaning changed because now to be dressed nice meant you looked nice, you looked pretty, you looked handsome, as opposed to before where it was the negative connotation. So the word just, same word, but the meaning completely flipped as culture flipped.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of...
That is cool.
One of the things that I found very, very interesting when we were doing the research on this is a lot of slang in the English language is based on nautical terms. Like a lot. There's tons of them. The sayings are one, but also terms like port and starboard. So I always have a problem remembering which is which, right? Which one's port, which one's starboard. Okay. They actually come from Old English words, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce it because I know I'll get it wrong, but it was starboard was spelled STEOR board, which meant the side which you steered from. So the majority of people are right-handed. So that means that you want to hold the rudder stick in your right hand. So the steering side is the right side.
Right.
Then because that stick is out that side of the boat, the port side, which is the one that you put against the dock, is the other side. Because you don't want the rudder to get fouled. And that's where port and starboard or steer side come from. Cool. Yeah. It's like just like you were saying before with nice and with the evolution of words. Some of the other ones that were really good was like if you're going to take a long shot. It's a long shot, right? Which means a lot of luck. And that's because shooting the early ship guns, the cannons, if you were shooting a really long distance, it was more luck than anything to hit that. Right? There's tons. We'll go into more, but I'm not gonna take all of our time here. We've got other ones that Kristian's got, and I know Fergal, you have some there too. So we'll come back to it. There's some fun ones.
So I've got one here that I thought. Fergal, did you guys ever learn any Gaelic at all?
Yeah. I went to an all-Irish school.
So, whiskey. The word of our favorite liquor can actually be traced back to the Gaelic word, and it's UISGE space BEATHA. Do you want?
Ishkabaha.
Yes, Ishkabaha.
Ishkabaha.
Sure, that's
Water
awesome.
of life.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, which
Yeah,
literally
water
means
of life.
water of life.
Yeah.
It's different, definitely ironic for someone who might have overindulged in a little too much whiskey and maybe felt like they were dying the morning after. But that's the Gaelic meaning of whiskey.
That is,
is
So do you
Water of
still can you still speak?
Because I haven't spoken it for a long time, but when I went to primary school, which would be the equivalent of elementary school here, it was all Irish. So you went to school in the morning and you didn't speak English until you were at home again that evening. So for me, Irish words have more meaning than the literal translation of them,
Okay.
So
You were back there a while ago, and when you heard someone speaking it, could you understand them?
oh yeah, I could hear, so I can understand. And my wife is using Duolingo now to learn Irish.
Oh, yeah?
So I'm helping her with some of the pronunciations.
Oh,
And
that's
stuff. So it's
fantastic.
cool,
I
yeah.
understand that it's actually starting to become a dying language because the youngsters are not learning it as much.
It's not. The thing is, it's in school, right? So in your secondary school education, high school education, you learn. You have to pass Irish.
Okay.
So that's why it's still in the schools, right? So that's what's barely keeping it alive,
Yeah.
Because it's still spoken in some parts of Ireland where that's what's spoken,
That's it.
not English.
There's-
Yeah. I mean, they'll understand you and they'll speak to you in English if you speak English to them, but they speak in Irish.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I understand it's one of the harder ones to learn going from English to...
Yeah, it's actually a lot easier to learn German for a native Irish speaker because there's some link or something to it. Yeah.
well, I mean, the internet's telling me Irish Gaelic is spoken by over 40,000 people in Ireland, and is considered one of the most endangered languages on the planet. Which, that's amazing.
Do you want to know how it was? It's all right. So it's those English again. So they basically, the English prevented the way colonization worked is you kept the local population down, and the way to do that was to destroy their language, destroy their culture, and under the auspices of I'm going to civilize them and bring them into my culture, which is much more civilized. And that's how it died. It's during that. So there was actual hedgerow schools where kids would go to school in the hedges, and they would be taught Irish by a local teacher who could no longer work because there were no longer schools. So he would teach them in these hedgerows. He'd teach them Irish culture, Irish history, and the Irish language. Yeah. Sorry for that tangent.
No, that's great.
That's
That'll be one of those things. That's where etymology, where each one of those different schools might teach a slightly different pronunciation of a word or a phrase, which it gives you your dialects.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Sticking with the horrible English people. I mean,
that's my ancestors.
Yeah, mine too. Mine more directly.
I do have some
But you
Scottish.
can't help your.
I do have some
can't help your
Scottish,
ancestors,
so.
really.
No. Sandwich. One of my favorite things.
I love a good sandwich.
Even though we ever thought about the weird word of sandwich actually is. Well, the sandwich got its name from John Montague, the 4th Earl of sandwich. So that it's a really funny story about how he had asked for his food to be served between two pieces of bread so that he could eat it with his hands while he was gambling, just so he could keep his hands clean. And I mean, we've all kind of seen that. We've all kind of heard that myth, but when I looked into it further, it's like everyone thought, oh, it's the Earl of Sandwich. Haha, it's a joke. No, it is legitimately
That's actually
real.
where it came from, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, the word sandwich comes from the Earl of Sandwich.
Well, that makes me wonder about like what we Canadians call a couch, a Chesterfield, because there's a location in the UK, Chesterfield, and I wonder if it's because
Is that where it originally designed?
or
came
the
from,
type of design, or
Yeah.
maybe the people that came here, or it's interesting when you see things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm from the town, like the city of Limerick, and it's Limerick, or there was poems, and
Yeah.
I'm like, where did that come
Yeah.
from? You know, how did that tie
How did
together?
that tie together? Speaking of some other ones coming from the UK, there's some ones that people use quite a bit when you say that's let the cat out of the bag. That's a good one. So way back when you used to go to the market to get all of your food, not the supermarket, but literally like a street.
Yeah.
And
Like a
there's
farmer's
people,
market.
a farmer's market, yeah. People would be selling, eggs and chickens and pigs and your veggies and everything else. Well, you do go to buy chickens, and of course they didn't have refrigeration, so these were live animals. And what they would do is chickens or piglets or whatever, they would put them in a bag, and then they'd hand you the bag, and you'd pay for the bag, pay for the chickens in the bag. But what they do sometimes is because cats were all over the place there, they'd take a cat and they'd stick it in the bag. So if you thought you were buying 3 chickens, there's actually 2 chickens and a cat. Because you didn't want to open the bag because they might,
Well,
the
the
animals
chickens will
might
run
get
out,
out and
yeah.
get away on you, right? Because once the bag's in your hand, it's yours. And so what would happen is to let the cat out of the bag would be to, tell about a secret or to release some information that no one wanted to be released. And that's, if you were to look in the bag and the cat would get out, all of a sudden the person who sold you this bag is supposed to have 3 chickens would be in a lot of trouble. So yeah, that's where it came from. They asked to see in the bag before the person handed it over to you.
That's funny.
Like, I think, Kristian, you should go back to your food ones and do the avocado.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, I was reading through some of these and I came across avocado. The word avocado comes from the Aztec word. So it has to have been something that is a native to North America, similar to many vegetables and stuff that we came over and procured. This one, though, they took the Aztec word.
I don't even try to pronounce it.
Yeah, ahua. I'm gonna try anyways. Ahuacatl.
Ahuacatl? Something
Yes.
like that.
What does it translate to, you ask? Well, testicles. It's likely what the Aztecs, who discovered this fruit back in 500 BC, named it because they were inspired by the texture and shape of the fruit and by the fact that it is covered in an aphrodisiac. Not to mention...
Considered, not
Yeah.
covered, considered.
See, this is why I'm bad at reading. Not to mention that avocados also grow in pairs.
Well, it's another one. The Aztec word was utilized. It's chocolate.
Ooh, my favorite thing.
Yeah, the word chocolate. So the story is that the I can't remember who it was, the Spaniards were down there, and they were they were being served hot chocolate, which is quite different from what we have today, but it was still quite good. I've had it. It's the original Aztec hot chocolate mixture is still quite good, and the Aztecs were providing it to the Spaniards, and they asked, what's it called? And there's a bit of a mistranslation, and the person who responded, thought, what is this? And they basically just said, it's hot. So chocolate in Aztec, if you were to change it to what the Aztec terms, it's hot.
So the entire meaning of a word is some moron misunderstood what he was being told. He's like, "Oh, great, I'm burning."
Yeah. When I was down at
Oh,
Chichen Itza, that the guide, that's the one that told us the story. He had someone there who spoke Aztec, and he said, can you pronounce this for us? And this little old lady, because Aztec is one of those languages again that's dying. Mm-hmm. And she said it, and it sounded so very much like chocolate to me as an English speaker, but without the each chocolate, like just the way she spoke it. When you just heard it in conversation, you'd think it was chocolate, but no, it was it's hot, and that's where that comes from. So I thought that was really interesting. One of those ones where it's like, oh, I'll have to remember that.
Yeah.
Well, me and you have had mortgages for a while.
Oh, I'm almost done.
Me and you
Couple
have
years,
right?
Yeah, 2
we
years.
decided
We having a big party.
Yeah,
a year and a half, something like that.
And Fergal just joined us into the dark side after many years of renting,
paying someone else's mortgage.
Yeah, paying someone else.
When I quote burn my mortgage, it's going to be a bonfire you can see from space, though. I think.
Yeah, and make sure your insurance is paid up.
Well, we're not doing it by the house. I just paid that sucker off.
As long as your insurance is paid up. But yeah, in the French word, mort means dead, and gage means pledge. So yes, a mortgage means a death pledge. Fear not, though. It was actually called this because the debt ends or becomes dead when the pledge is fulfilled or the property is taken through foreclosure. Not because taking out a mortgage is actually a death pledge. Thank goodness for that. Yeah, I thought that one was funny. I was like, oh yeah, Fergal just took his death pledge.
Yeah.
I think we should just start calling them that now. No more mortgage, and all the documents just say death pledge.
We'll have to tell Talon that. Maybe he can change some of his legal documents to include that.
Yeah, mortgage shall be further known as death pledge.
Yeah.
Well, here's one that I liked, which was nightmare. So the word nightmare derives from the Middle English word mare, which referred to not a cute horse, but actually a goblin creature or evil spirit that was believed to affect you while you were sleeping, giving you the feeling of suffocation as they sat on your chests.
So that's basically how the Irish felt for a couple hundred years, while the English
800.
Yeah, while the English sat on their faces,
stood on their necks.
Yeah. We were
Held
a
us
nightmare.
down.
We were a nightmare, yeah.
Yeah. And
if you go with we were a jumbo nightmare, this fun word jumbo describes something very large, was actually popularized by a 19th century African elephant in the London Zoo, named, you guessed it, Jumbo the elephant. He was quite large, weighed over 6 tons in fact,
Wow,
and was
6 tons.
showcased in circuses for his impressive size. So it just makes sense that his name still lives on today to honor all things gigantic.
so when you go and you get that jumbo size fries,
It should be a 6-ton. If they're going by the
6 tons
proper
of fries.
measurement,
Yeah.
it should be a 6-ton truck of fries.
the front end loader pulls up to your car. Where do you want them?
Which, again, leads us on to it would be a fiasco if they did that. I know, my segues are horrible too.
Yeah.
Fiasco comes from the Italian word fiasco, which actually refers to a glass bottle. To make a bottle, according to one theory, when Venetian glassmakers, and if you've ever been to Venice or seen Venice, they have these amazing shops with glass.
Venice was like the center for glass for quite some time.
And so what they would do, when they realized a piece that they were making had flaws, they'd set it aside, the imperfected glass, and turn it into an ordinary bottle called a fiasco. which explains why this word comes to mean a complete failure. Because in Italy, it's a success or it's a complete failure. There's no in between. So yeah, there's fiasco as a jumbo nightmare that the British were. It was a fiasco. Now, we've gone into some very common words that, and we can come back to some more here if we want. As I started looking into this, I started wondering about.
Yeah, his mind went to the gut.
I went dirty. Let's there's a reason we had to put a warning at the beginning of this one. My mind went down a dirty tunnel, and most of that was curse words. Like, why do we have curse words? Where do they come from? I mean, one of that we've kind of, Fergal had said, take a piss.
Take the piss.
Take the piss. Sorry.
Yeah.
Taking the piss.
Yeah.
It means you're making fun of them. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well,
or taking the mick, they say as well.
Yeah. So the word piss origin is Middle English. Also from Old French pisser, probably of imitative origin. So very similar timelines, but
I'm sure we're not pronouncing any of these right.
Oh, absolutely. So feel free to make fun of us all you want. In keeping with our theme of bodily waste, we have piss, a relatively mild swear word, but definitely not something you'd like your grandmother to hear your grandmother say. The origin story of this one is pretty boring, but there's another little tidbit for you. The Old French pisser seems to refer not to urine itself, but to that which dispels the urine. It essentially means one who pisses.
Oh, okay.
Or that which pisses, so an animal or whatnot, meaning it can refer to either a person or a certain male appendage that could certainly come up with some vulgar words for, as with...
Yeah, we won't go into it. I have another one here that we'll just take a little side one, because we have piss poor.
Yes.
Fergal, if I said I was piss poor, what does that mean?
Oh, you haven't a pot to piss in,
That's
or
another
to throw it out of.
Yeah, so where does that come from? What does it mean, and where does it come from?
Oh, I know. Where does it come
Well,
from?
when I say, if someone says they haven't a pot to piss in, that means they're very, very poor.
Yeah.
Or they're piss poor, right? And that comes from early 19th century and before that, I believe. But poor families would save their urine, and it would be sold to the tanners because that was used to tan leather.
Because of the ammonia.
The nitrates and stuff.
Oh,
in
nitrates.
it. Yeah. And that's why tanners
treat the
smelled
leather.
so terrible, because you had to let it ferment.
Lovely.
And if anyone has ever smelled that, it's horrifying. But because they were so poor, they needed that money just to survive, so they would sell
they'd store
their
it up
urine.
and sell it on.
Yeah, but if you were so poor you didn't have a pot to piss in, that means you didn't even have something to put it into
To sell it on.
to sell it off.
Oh, jeez.
Like, that's very
It's
interesting.
horrible if you think about where that came from. It's to be that poor, but
Yeah.
there were people that were that poor. So, yeah.
Sticking with the bodily function part of our show. Ass. You're all a bunch of asses. The variant of arse, or Old English arse, or Germanic origin related to Dutch. So it's very similar in all the Dutch, the French, the German, English, used a very similar word. Depending on where you lived, ass or arse may be the more common variant of this word. While this word doesn't refer to excretion itself, it does of course revert to the body part responsible for that particular unpleasant but very necessary function. And thus is the butt, pun intended, of many jokes and insults.
No, we know from our last episode that a butt is a measurement, though.
It is now. So, yes. A donkey is also known as an ass, where its Latin subgenus name,
Asinus.
and the ass is often used as an insult, essentially meaning a stupid or foolish person. This is completely separate from its bum-related meaning. It would be noted, whilst it is not at all insulting to call a donkey an ass,
because that's correct.
It would be quite rude to tell a donkey that it has a fat ass.
Jeez. Who writes this stuff?
So yeah, it's like I say, some of these words, like it's mind-boggling how we've come to the roots of these words. Some going back like the Aztecs, 500 BC, but then others are more modern, but still rooted in like Latin. It's from a saying 100 years ago, but that saying itself is rooted in Latin or Greek, like one of the words in the saying, or root. The etymology. It's fascinating to see where we've come up with these.
Like they're so based in culture, which is really interesting because, like I said, the nautical ones here. I'm just going to blow through a few of these really quickly here. To tide over, it means to make a small amount last until a larger amount is available.
Oh, come on, Jess.
But that's TIDE.
Yeah.
Okay, not like tying a bow, but tide as in like the water tides, right?
Come on, Jess. Toe the company line like everyone else.
It's just toe the line, but yes.
Yes.
That's because the tide over is because the sailors would go with the tide, right? So they'd get into port and they couldn't leave until the tide was at a certain point again, so they would tide over. It just means, and they'd make do with what they had until they could leave. Toe the line, again,
We've
nautical.
all been told that one.
When the sailors got back in the boat, or when they were being, spoken to, there was literally a white, well, not a white, but there was a line of boards that they would have, that they would put their toes on, so they were in a straight line, because common sailors were not believed to be smart enough to be able to stand in a straight line otherwise. And they were told, toe the line, which meant stand there and we're going to speak to you. Nowadays, though, it means like you need to do what you're told.
Many people might be taken aback from that statement.
Yes, which is startled or surprised. Again, another nautical one. The sails were taken aback when the wind blew them flat, which means it would push the boat backwards.
But when they talk to you like that, were you feeling blue at the end of the conversation?
Your segues are awful.
They're not getting any better.
No, they're not going to get
again,
any better.
That one is another nautical one. Feeling blue means sad or melancholy. If a captain or an officer of the ship died while at sea, they would fly a blue flag and paint a blue band along the ship's hull to indicate they were grieving.
Interesting.
But you know what? They'd be a lot better. Really, it depended on the cut of their jib as to whether or not they took that well or not.
So a person's general appearance, the cut of their jib. A jib is a type of sail, and every country would display their jib, their unique one, to let them know where the ship was from. Flags were used, but flags were more used for communication back then, not to identify like we do nowadays. Because if you ran a Canadian flag up there, they'd look at it and go, what the hell is that? Whereas back then, you flew flags on a rope at the back of your boat, and it would indicate, what country you were, your status, all that stuff.
What was that called again? Semaphore?
No, the semaphore is the Morse code with two flags. This is just the pennants on the back of a boat. So when you see an old time sailing ship, they have that rope at the back that sort of sticks out and has a whole bunch of different colored flags. Depending on the order, like how high they were and where they were and what color they were and shape and things like that, it would indicate if the boat was, English or Irish or French, or it would indicate if they were under quarantine, or if they were a merchant vessel just leaving port. There's a whole bunch of different ways to use. That's what they used to communicate without having to get close enough to yell at each other.
So I mean, that's one where like the cut of his jib really, it's lost its meaning. It's a very.
If you were to say that to someone who's like of the current generation, like Keaton, he might know what it is.
Yeah, but I mean that's where it's lost its original meaning, though. Like,
well, we don't use sails anymore,
right? Yeah, I guess I use solar and I use electricity, and
Yeah, I don't. Oh no, I do have a sail over top of my hot tub sometimes, but but you know, without all that stuff, if the cut of your jib wasn't very good, you might be down in the doldrums.
Okay, yeah, that one.
In the
Where'd it go?
doldrums.
Where'd my thing go?
Well, you know,
Depressed.
it means depressed or listless. And the doldrums refer to the belt around the Earth near the equator. Well, I can't get a belt around my equator anymore.
Often people, the boats would become becalmed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they wouldn't be able to sail, so it would take a very long time, and people would become very depressed and sad and starving and scurvy and dying. And
because they're stuck in a windless water. Yeah. Like if you've ever seen those oceans where it's a sheet of glass. Mm. You know, can you imagine being in the middle of an ocean and that happens to you? Yeah, so that's where in the doldrums, that the doldrums refers to that part of the Earth where quite often the oceans are more calm.
They don't have as many what is it called?
Weather events.
No, the currents.
Tides, the currents.
Yeah. But to keep the crew's spirits up, one of the things they did was, I don't know about all of the different navies, but I know, again, there's a lot of UK stuff here. I'm very sorry, Fergal. He's sitting there and he's just being quiet and staring at me with these squinted eyes. They were given a shot of rum every day. It was a certain amount. I can't remember what it was. It was a dram, I think, is the amount. It's a specific measurement of rum. And then what they were doing was, they were given that rum and they couldn't save it. It had to be drank in front of the officer after it was given to them. And so bottoms up means to finish your drink quickly. Now, it comes from that, but there's actually a more nefarious meaning behind it. So the way that they used to conscript sailors was, the law was, if you accepted the king's coin, you were conscripted. Mm-hmm. And what they'd do is they'd go into pubs and they'd drop money into the guys' drinks when they weren't looking. And these guys would drink their drink and there'd be a shilling in the bottom. And they'd be like, oh, I can their drink. They'd pull it out and they'd buy a drink. They've accepted the king's coin, and now they were conscripted into the Navy. So what they did, and I don't know if you've ever seen these, if you found a pewter mug or something where it has a glass bottom, what they would do is they'd say, bottoms up, you raise your mug, you look to see if there's money in the bottom of it, because you could see through the bottom of the glass now. And if there was, you would set it down, and you'd get another drink. And that's where bottoms up comes from in there. But people now take it to mean put the bottom of your glass upwards to drink it, which was also associated to that
time.
I like the idea of forced conscription with a coin.
But it was the way it was worded. It was,
shilling.
if you've taken the king's coin, you are conscripted. So everyone sort of thought, well, that just means as long as I've accepted money and you hand me it, I take it. It's pretty obvious just to say no if I don't want to.
Yeah.
Unless you're 3 or 4 mugs in.
So it sounds like a legal agreement that Elon Musk would put in one of his Tesla, riders when you're signing all these papers.
Cybertruck.
Yeah.
Like one of those sneaky little legal terms that we're just going to put this in here and see if anyone notices.
And they put you over a barrel.
Yeah. Over a barrel.
You know what that one is, right? I'm sure you had some corporal punishment when you were little.
Oh, for sure we did. But I didn't. I never got put over a bar. Now that sounds...
No. But you did get the
nuns
a
didn't
cane
have
or a.
Oh yeah, for sure. The ruler. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was.
It would have been called in Irish on Bata Fada.
What's that?
The long stick.
What?
Yeah, the long stick.
Oh.
Yeah,
he had my second class teacher, Mr. Moran, had it must have been a 15-foot bamboo. I'm not joking you. And
like
someone
a swagger stick.
Someone would fall asleep or something down the back of the class, and he'd just go like this and shh, and he would take out the stick and he'd run it down and boom on the top of the head.
Ouch!
Oh, see, ours here we still had corporal punishment, and mine was about a 1.5 2 foot long ruler wrapped in leather.
Oh,
Yeah, that was. I had that one a couple times in like grade 1 or 2. I pulled the fire alarm the day before Christmas, and it was minus 40 outside. So I deserved it. Oh, I deserved it 100%. And not only was I, absolutely moronic, I pulled the fire alarm and then stood there and watched the entire school evacuate.
Next to the pulled fire alarm.
Yes, next to the pulled. I didn't move. I just stood there and watched everyone run out of the quote-unquote burning building that I knew wasn't burning.
Oh,
yeah. Well, I remember, because I used to get the same thing, like you get it across the hands or for doing something wrong or whatever, but we had like old iron chairs, like the chairs with iron bases, so it was so cold you'd grip your hands onto it to get the relief from the after getting smacked.
So over the barrel comes from nautical terms again. The midshipmen, who are actually usually young kids, who were going to become lieutenants and captains and what have you, or any crew that have gone up to a captain's mast, which is basically the captain decides your punishment, right? It's anything up to but not including death, I believe is how it worked. So you were punished, and what it would be is you'd be taken and put over the barrel, and the first mate or the first lieutenant or whoever was in charge of discipline would give you the cane. And the only way because they had to hold you down, so to be put over a barrel and your hands held,
you're in the perfect position,
and then they'd give you the cane. Wow. And that's why when you say I'm over the barrel, it means that you're in trouble.
You're hooped.
Yeah.
Well, and typically if they did that, you might spill the beans, which is another one. Spill the beans is an ancient Greek would hold votes using a vase that a person would put either a white or black bean into.
The original democracy.
Yeah. When it came time to find the results, they would spill the beans from the vase and count the black and white beans.
Yeah.
So spill the beans was literal as to what it was.
Reveal.
But
you could literally hear him saying it in like the forums or whatever. He's, okay, the votes are, come on, spill the beans and we see what the result is.
Yeah, that one's pretty cool.
I like that one.
Yeah. And if the beans were very, close in the count, you might be close if you were the loser. Close but no cigar.
And that is one of those ones. When I read this, I thought this is wild because I've used that. Oh, it's close but no cigar, and you think, where the hell did that come from?
Yeah, when you think about it,
What? Why?
Yeah, because it makes no sense.
No, not at all. But it was early fair games. You go to the carny and you throw the baseball and it hits the cans, and all of them except for one goes down. Right? So you try to get the best prize you can, but which would back then be a cigar.
Wow.
So if you didn't get that, you got close.
But no cigar.
Yeah.
Very nice.
There's another one I really like. So when I was in university, I lived in the dorms, and there was a lot of people there that were taking English as a second language. So gentlemen from lots of guys from Hong Kong and China and Taiwan. I lived in a dorm where I was the only white guy in it. Right? It was interesting. I very much enjoyed my time. And they
definitely opens your mind, right?
Yeah.
Especially coming from Moose Jaw.
Well, and some of the food that they made. Oh my God, it was so good.
We had growing up, 4 or 5 Chinese families in Moose Jaw, and they all ran Chinese restaurants.
Yeah, or corner stores.
Yeah, or corner stores. Black families in Moose Jaw at the time. There was
very few,
2 or 3.
Yeah.
I went to school with one, and he used the N-word to describe himself to us.
Really?
And said we could call him that, and we didn't think anything. This was in the 90s. And it wasn't we weren't using it derogatory, and he told us to call him that. But had anyone come into our community and seen us calling him this, it would have been absolutely no. But that was playing basketball. It was shorter than using his full name.
Oh, jeez.
So yeah, convenience. I'm going to racially abuse you.
Yeah. So these guys, they were doing English as second language, and one of the things as in English as second language, if you've ever had the wonder of being able to take one of those courses, they go through slang because our language, as we've shown so far, and we haven't even gone through half of the slangs that we've got here is full of it. There's a slang, it's full of it. There's so many of them, and they don't necessarily mean what you're saying. Close but no cigar, right? Drop of a hat, piss poor, all these things like that. They hear that and they go, what? One of the ones, the gentleman came into my room and I'm having some problems with slangs. And I said, okay, well, show me what they are. And so he shows me, and there's a couple of, like, I can't even remember what they were, but the one that stuck in my mind, because I actually knew where it came from, was giving someone the cold shoulder. So, Kristian, I give you the cold shoulder. I say, I'm going to give Kristian a cold shoulder. What does that mean?
That you turn away from me, that you
kind of snub them. Yeah. You don't listen to them. You ignore them.
It's like what most of my coworkers do to me daily. Justified, of course.
Yeah. But what that means originally is when you had a guest. So someone would travel. Like when someone stayed over, it wasn't because they were from like a couple blocks down. It was because they were from quite a ways away, and they were guesting with you. And they would come and they would stay, and you would provide them with the guest privileges, which was you made food for them because they were your guest. That was the hospitality. But if a guest stayed too long, you couldn't say get out, because that's part of the guest privileges. The guest would stay as long as they needed to, right? So what you do is you would make a nice shoulder of beef the night before, and then the next morning, rather than serve them a nice hot breakfast, you'd cut the slimy, congealed grease, cold meat off of the shoulder and provide that for breakfast. So you're giving them the cold shoulder, which basically means get lost. You've overstayed your welcome. And so when I explained that to him, I said, it means, to snub or ignore or, and I said, nowadays that's what it means. But this is where it comes from. Watching the light turn on in his eyes. Well, that makes total sense, because now he could associate it to his own culture and understand, rather than just looking at words and say, well, that doesn't make sense. Yeah. And that's why I really enjoy seeing a lot of these where they come from, and because then you can explain it to someone and say, well, this is what it used to mean, and this is why we say it now. And people go like, well, that makes total sense now.
Yeah, that's a cool story.
That is.
Yeah, they were neat because I was helping them with English as a second language. Of course, I don't speak Cantonese or Mandarin or anything like that. I barely speak English sometimes. And they were so respectful of the help that I would give them, because I wouldn't give them the answers. I'd lead them to finding it out for themselves. And which I learned from my father and my sister, who are both teachers. When they came into my dorm room, which is basically a bedroom, right? And you had your own bedroom, and then there was like shared bathrooms and shared common area. They'd come in my bedroom, they'd come down the hall, and they'd be talking away in Mandarin or Cantonese or whatever their language was, depending on where they were from. And as they hit the doorway, right in the middle of the doors, as they hit that, they'd switch over to English.
Really? So
when they were in my room, all they spoke was English. Or when I was with them, so we were downstairs and we were, everyone was just sort of visiting and talking, and someone's making supper, they would speak English. And it was really interesting because one time someone who wasn't from our pod was there with them doing homework, and they came down to my room. They crossed the thing, and they came into my room, and the one guy kept speaking whatever he was. And this one of my roommates turned to him and says, "No, you speak English in Jess's room." It was so respectful. I really appreciated that. And that's why I never felt like I was separate or,
Or they were speaking about you. And
because they recognized you and your individuality. And that's I wonder if that's a cultural thing. Cause, I mean,
respectful type of thing.
Well, and I also did the same thing for them. Like they were making something to eat or whatever, and it was something that I did not want to have, which was like occasionally, I'm sorry, I don't eat whole fish heads. That's just not my way. I get that it probably tastes fantastic because everything they made was amazing, but I would say no, thank you. That's not within my culture, and I don't find it appealing. However, you go ahead.
Go for it.
But I'd explain why. I wouldn't just say, oh, gross. No, I'd say, no, it's not within my culture. No, thank you.
So they'd understand.
Yeah. That'd be like when I was eating something and they'd be like, what are you eating? And well, I'm having this. Really?
Yeah.
You want to try some? Yeah. the typical university students' meals, which was Ichiban with an egg cracked into it while it's boiling and a hot dog cut up into it. That was a gourmet meal, man.
3-inch
You had
pizzas.
eggs.
Occasionally, that was a gourmet meal.
Well, we've delved pretty deep into the world of words, and
There are so many. If you're interested in this, just go on the internet. There's so many things that are so cool.
Yeah, it's a cool rabbit hole to go down.
Yeah.
and it's etymology. Etymology is what you're looking to try and search for.
There was a channel, a YouTube channel, and I'm trying to remember his name now. He talked about etymology and word origins and grammar and things like that. And I'll see if I can find it and we can post it with the description of the episode. There are some really good episodes of him talking about that. It's Tom something.
Yeah, we'll tag it on the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much our episode, I think, for today. We've really had some horrible puns that I've thrown in there and some comical segues. And we're going to finish off with whiskey and,
Say that again.
Ishkabaha.
Ishkabaha.
we are going to go drink the water of life and see if we can't drown ourselves.
I really like that.
Ishkabaha.
Okay.
The word of the day is Ishkabaha.
There you go.
Next time someone who's listening goes up to a bartender and they say, "What do you want?" And you go, "Ishkabaha and water," or whatever you like your whiskey with. And they'll go,
And ice.
"What?"
All right, everyone. Thanks again, and have a good day.
Cheers.
Thanks again for letting us into your ear holes with this Nerdish Nerdy Nerd News podcast. Check out our website at wildshot.ca.
You can find us on all the socials under Nerdish Nerdy Nerd News. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can also subscribe and support us at patreon.com/nerdish to get more bonus content, show notes, and merch.
If you'd like to send us topics for future episodes or comment about our existing ones, please email us info@wildshot.ca. And remember, stay nerdy.
Nerdish Nerdy Nerd News.